Welcome. Today we are tackling one of the biggest questions out there. Are we just puppets with our strings being pulled by the invisible hands of society? Or are we the ones building the whole stage, writing the script, and directing the show every single day? I mean, really think about it. Your taste in music, your political beliefs, even the way you say hello. How much of that is truly you, and how much of it was shaped by the world you just happened to be born into? This is the big debate we're going to unpack, the massive power of social structures versus the creative force of our own individual actions. So here's our game plan. We're going to start with that big, top-down view, how powerful systems shape our lives. Then we'll zoom all the way in to the bottom-up perspective and see how we actually create society with our everyday interactions. And finally, we'll try to connect the two and answer that huge question. Okay, so let's jump in with our first perspective, the top-down view. This approach sees society as this powerful force that kind of molds us from above. And a really great way to understand this is through the lens of feminist theory, which argues that our social order is built on a very specific power structure. Now, at the heart of all feminist theories, you'll find this one single concept, patriarchy. And this isn't just about individual men and women. No, it's about a whole social system, an architecture, really, where male interests are just systematically prioritized over female interests. So how does a system like this actually work? Well, the theory breaks it down into two main forms. First, you've got interpersonal power, which happens in private, maybe within a family. And then there's cultural power. Think about this one like the layout of a giant skyscraper. Men tend to dominate the highest floors, the boardrooms, the halls of government, the big cultural institutions. This structure just makes it way easier for some people to get to the penthouse, while others face all sorts of barriers just trying to get off the ground floor. But here's where it gets interesting. While all feminists see patriarchy as the problem, they don't all agree on where it comes from. Some focus on things like legal discrimination. Others point to economic systems like capitalism, and others see the patriarchal system itself as the root cause of, well, everything. So they all agree on the problem, but they point to different root causes for that imbalance. All right, let's totally flip the script. We've seen that 30,000-foot top-down view. Now let's get right down to the ground level and see how social order is actually built from the bottom up, moment by moment, every single day. Okay, this is the really mind-bending idea at the core of this perspective. Society isn't some giant machine that's physically out there. It's a label. It only has power because every morning we all wake up and act like it's a real controlling force. We create it and we recreate it with every single conversation, every little interaction. So these theorists, the interactionists, they really push back against the idea that we're just empty buckets that society fills up. The sociologist Dennis Wrong criticized what he called an over-socialized conception of man, basically saying, hey, we're not just puppets. We have a degree of freedom, some agency to interpret the world and act within it. So if society isn't some fixed thing, how do we have any order at all? How is it not just chaos? The answer is shared meanings. You can think of social life as one giant improv scene. The only reason it works is because we all, for the most part, agree on the basic rules of the game in any given situation. Order totally depends on us defining what's happening in the same way. Just look at this. The physical action, two people hitting each other, is identical. It's the same thing, but change the context, change our shared definition from illegal violence to regulated sport, and our whole reaction just flips. One is chaos that we need to stop, right? We call the police. The other is entertainment we pay money to see. The meaning is everything. Let's bring this right into your life, your phone. Is it just a piece of technology for making calls? Of course not. The brand, the model, how new it is, it all sends a message, doesn't it? We negotiate its meaning as a status symbol through our interactions. That meaning isn't built into the phone. We're the ones who put it there. Okay, so we've got these two really powerful but kind of opposite views. On one hand, society is this giant controlling structure. On the other, it's the fluid product of our daily actions. So how can both be right? This is where a theory called structuration comes in, and it tries to bridge this exact gap. This one idea from sociologist Anthony Giddens is the absolute key. It's not a one-way street, it's a loop. Our actions create social rules, and then those very same rules turn around and influence what we do next. Think of it like walking across a big grassy field. The very first person to walk across creates a faint trail. That's action. Then, as more and more people follow that trail, their actions reinforce it, creating a really distinct path. That's structure. Pretty soon, anyone new who comes to the field is naturally guided by the path, the structure, which was created by action is now shaping future action. But, and this is important, Giddens is really clear that this isn't some perfectly balanced loop. Power still matters. A lot. Some rules are negotiated, like the unwritten rules of a friendship that you and a friend create together over time. But other rules, like the law against murder, are not up for negotiation. They are forced on us by powerful institutions like the government. Which brings us all the way back to where we started. After looking at society from the top down and then from the bottom up, who's really in charge here? The structure or us? At the end of the day, the most compelling answer is, it's not an either-or question. It's a paradox. The answer is both. We are shaped by the social world, by the paths laid down before we ever got here. But we're also the ones walking on those paths, reinforcing them, changing their direction, or maybe even blazing new ones. Structure and action are just two sides of the same coin. So maybe the better question isn't who's in charge, but something more like, what's my role in all this? Because we all have to navigate the rules of the game. The really interesting part is deciding how we play, which rules we follow, which ones we kind of bend, and maybe which ones we can help rewrite entirely. And that tension, right there, is where everything important happens. It's where change begins. And that choice, in big ways and small, is the real power we all have.